What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Eagle Wolf Gaming. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I'm pretty excited because this is my first ever Warframe video, and boy, is it going to be a controversial one. So we recently had a new dev stream that showcased more of Yareli's design and abilities, and I thought it would be a good idea to discuss some of my initial thoughts on the changes that were made to Yareli since we were first introduced to her a couple weeks ago. I also wanted to go over what I thought some of her abilities were going to be and what her abilities actually ended up being. Lastly, just a quick reminder that this video is going to be obnoxiously nitpicky and everything I talk about is just my initial impressions of the new Warframe Yareli. I understand she is still in development and may receive some adjustments before release, so let's get started. So I recently just started getting back into Warframe after a fair bit of time away. The last time I really spent any time in the game was to farm Nezra Prime, but that was pretty short-lived and I quickly disappeared for another couple months.
Then, everything changed when the Water Nation attacked.
So I never actually saw the dev stream when Yareli was originally announced. I actually learned about Yareli by watching one of Brozyme's dev stream breakdowns, and I was instantly excited for this new Warframe. The only words I had to describe this Warframe was beautiful, graceful, elegant, and powerful. The hype I felt the moment I saw this new frame was so strong that it instantly made me want to start playing Warframe again, and as a result, I've been playing this game almost every single day since. I also just had a 4-day weekend where I pretty much played Warframe non-stop except to eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. My expectations for this frame was even higher than the expectations I had when I saw Wisp's assets for the first time ever. With all that being said, I was extremely anxious to see the next dev stream to learn more about this graceful yet powerful water-based frame that I knew nearly nothing about. But as soon as Rebecca started showing off Yareli, I was like, oh, so that's what they were going for. It's not that I thought Yareli looked bad, it's just that the only thing she really has going on is how cute she is. Yareli is just cute. The frame that I had earlier described as graceful, elegant, and powerful was replaced with words like kawaii, moe, and lolly. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just not what I was expecting. Now that we've got my initial thoughts out of the way, let's start comparing the differences between Yareli's concept art and her 3D model, and why I think her concept art is far superior to what we were shown on the dev stream. First off, look at the hood on top of Yareli's head. Do you see the spacing in between the hood and Yareli's face? I feel like this spacing gives a really nice sense of depth in her design. Now look at Yareli's 3D model. There is a distinct lack of the spacing that we saw earlier, and it looks kind of like the hood has just been glued onto the top of her head. In fact, it looks less like a cool hood and more like a bandana slash headscarf slash wedding veil. The next nitpick I have is Yareli's face. If we look at the concept art again, Yareli clearly has a face. Also, her face looks almost bird-like in design, which I think is really cool and unique. She has a forehead that has this cool design on it, she has cool glowing eyes, she has cheeks, and her mouth and nose looks almost like a bird's beak. Now if we look back at the 3D model, what happened? Who stole Yareli's face? The cool design that was on her forehead is now taking up 2/3 of her face, making her look like she is wearing a Dead Space 2 mask. Plus, her face is as flat as a billboard, and the only other aspect of her face that was preserved were her cheeks, which looks slightly out of place now without the rest of her facial features. I'm really hoping that with both the hood design and the face design that DE will come out with an alt helmet that is more faithful to the concept art. Next up on my obnoxious list of nitpicks is Yareli's skirt. Do you see how nicely the skirt appears to go all the way behind and around to the left of Yareli's hip, making for a nice reserved kind of half skirt with a little bit of flare coming out from underneath the skirt? To me, this design looks really nice and it feels like it flows from top to bottom with a little bit of flare at the end. Now let's compare that to the 3D model. First off, the thing that I thought was a nice and reserved one-piece half skirt has turned into multiple flower petals, and the little bit of flare that was coming out of the bottom of the skirt before is now more prominent than anything else. And that's not even the worst part, just look at how poofy it is. Remember before when I said Yareli's design flows really well from top to bottom with a little bit of flare at the end? Well, this updated design completely ruins that. Now the design looks really good starting at the torso, but as soon as you get to the hips, it just looks super busy and over-designed in my opinion. Again, all I can really hope for is that DE will come out with a different skin that more closely resembles the original concept art. Hey guys, me from the future here. I just want to talk about this image that I came across while I was editing this video. I feel like this is a good compromise between what I was imagining and what we actually got over here. Like, it's still not a full one piece. It still feels like it's broken up into these sections here, but it still just doesn't feel quite as poofy as this one does. It still feels like this bit is coming out from underneath the skirt rather than just being this huge, like jellyfish sort of like rounded top. I don't know, I really don't like how rounded and poofy this is, whereas here it feels more flat and reserved, and this is kind of what I was going for. Like, if they just flattened it to look more like this, I'd actually be really happy and I wouldn't complain about it anymore. Alright, that's all, back to the video. So the last of the small criticisms I have regarding Yareli's appearance is her noble animation set. I just don't feel like this animation set really capitalizes on Yareli's flowy design concept. And I don't know, but it just looks a little bit awkward to me for some reason. Especially the right arm with how it crosses over to the left arm. That looks really weird to me for whatever reason, I don't really know why. Now looking at the stance shown in the concept art, this stance looks so much more open and welcoming. If you take a look at the right arm, the fulcrum on the arm makes this like perfect V shape with the palm facing inward, making for a really soft but elegant motion, while the left arm simply floats off in the other direction. I think this is excellently portrayed, and I would have preferred it if this was her noble animation. Now that I've gotten Yareli's physical appearance out of the way, I wanted to discuss what I thought an aspect of Yareli's kit was going to be when I first saw this concept art. When I saw these two water chakrams floating next to Yareli, I thought for sure DE was going to give her dual water glaives as an exalted weapon. That would have been freaking awesome because she would have been the first frame to use two glaives at the same time, and she would have had to have unique animation sets for her melee stances. I think DE could have modeled the animations for these exalted glaives to be similar to the chakrams used in Kingdoms of Amular Reckoning. The chakrams in that game are my favorite weapon type, and I would have loved to see how well they could have been translated into Warframe. Also, as a potential ability, I thought it would have been really cool if Yareli could summon more water chakrams with her waterbending powers, and they would act as seeker blades that would float around the battlefield and attack any enemy that was within range of the ability. Of course, this would have been her main damage dealing ability, and it would obviously need to be able to synergize and scale with her other abilities, but I thought it would have been really cool. Also, as a side note, I was so busy looking at the rest of Yareli's concept art that I never considered what Yareli was standing on and its implications. Now it's time to talk about Yareli's actual abilities, starting with her passive. Yareli's passive ability makes her do more crit damage as long as she continues to move. I think this passive is fine. I think it would have made more sense on a frame like Volt or Goss, where speed and movement is the whole point. However, this passive would make more sense on Yareli if she was given two water glaives that have decent crit chance. Just saying. The first ability I want to talk about is Yareli's third ability, called Aqua Blades. This ability summons multiple water glaives that spin around Yareli like a table saw in a very short range. I bring up her third ability first because this is presumably Yareli's main damage dealing ability, and because it is extremely similar to my Seeking Chakrams ability that I thought of earlier. I think this would be better as a first or second ability, but since this is supposed to be Yareli's bread and butter ability, I kind of feel like it's a little underwhelming. Now, I don't want to come right out and say that this ability sucks because we all know how amazing the damage on Gaara's Splinter Storm is, but that ability is primarily used for survivability and damage is secondary. I think the problem with this ability is going to be not just the lack of range, but the lack of variable range. Now, what do I mean by variable range? Well, let's say this ability was modded with a bunch of range on it, which results in Aqua Blades circling Yareli from further away. Now, the Aqua Blades would have an easier time dealing with enemies that are further away, and a harder time dealing with enemies that are close by. So what I mean by variable range is that this ability should be able to take care of enemies that are nearby, as well as enemies that are at a distance. One way to fix this problem would be to give this ability 2 additional Aqua Blade rings, depending on how much range you mod for. These rings would be set further away like an expanding telescope to help with the variable range problem. I don't think making this change will make Aqua Blades amazing, but it would definitely help. Also, I really want to know how you guys would fix this ability because you probably have better ideas than I do. Now it's time to talk about Yareli's first ability called Sea Snares. When used, Yareli releases a grand total of 3 water bubbles that grab enemies and lift them into the air like a worse version of Vauban's Bastille. This ability also does more damage to an enemy the longer it is in the air, but it seems like the damage it does is going to be pretty negligible, so it's not really worth mentioning. Also, if we look at the stats of this ability, it doesn't seem like we will be able to increase the number of snares that get released per cast. If I'm being honest, I feel like this is going to be one of the worst CC abilities in the game if left alone. It looks worse than Harrow's Condemn, Titania's Spellbind, Nidus's Larva, and many better CC type abilities. However, I think this ability has a lot of potential synergy with Yareli's Aqua Blades. How I would go about fixing this ability is first and foremost giving Yareli more sea snares per cast, making it possible to pick up more than 3 enemies at a time. Secondly, rather than the enemies just being lifted up into the air like Vauban's Bastille, the sea snare should grab the enemies and drag them towards Yareli to be cut up by her Aqua Blades. This too would fix Aqua Blade's variable range problem because sea snares would grab faraway enemies and drag them right into her spinning blades. Again, I think this ability has a ton of potential, but if DE keeps it the way it currently is, I fear it will be extremely underwhelming. So Yareli's second ability is called Marulina, and it is literally just a K-drive. Also, it was at this point in the dev stream that I clicked off of Warframe's Twitch stream and clicked onto Brozyme's stream to see what he had to say. And if any of you guys are interested in what Brozyme said regarding this ability, go check out his YouTube channel because he makes some awesome Warframe content and I watch his videos all the time. But first guys, I'm just going to come right out and say that I absolutely loathe this ability and want it to be removed. I will literally never use this ability even if it does give a little bit of damage reduction. I think DE could have just made regular K-drives usable in all Warframe game modes and made Yareli's passive be she gets damage reduction while riding K-drives. Then DE could have given her a way better second ability. Lastly, when I first saw this ability, I thought for sure this was going to be an easy helmet swap. Like, an easy helmet swap. But that was before I saw Yareli's final ability. So, what's with Yareli and having worse versions of other Warframe's abilities? Her 2 is a worse version of Vauban's Bastille, and her final ability, Cyclone Strike, is just a worse version of Zephyr's Tornadoes before it was fixed. DE literally took Zephyr's terrible tornado ability before it got reworked and slapped it onto Yareli. And not only that, but they made it worse somehow. I think we can all agree that Yareli deserves better than to have a bunch of half-baked ideas for abilities. And guys, I really don't have any ideas on how to make this ability better or what should be done with it aside from just getting rid of it. If you guys have any ideas, I would really like to know. Now guys, I know this video sounds like I'm just complaining about Yareli, and to be honest I am. I really am. But that's not because I dislike Yareli. In fact, it's just the opposite. The reason I have so much negative criticism about Yareli is because I am super excited for this Warframe to be released, and my expectations for Yareli are way higher than they should be, because I want Yareli to be one of the best designed frames in the game, both in how she looks and how she plays. It would be such a shame to see such an amazing Warframe go to waste because she didn't spend enough time in development. I know DE has the ability to make awesome Warframes, and I don't want Yareli to be just another frame that starts collecting dust on our ships. And with that, guys, thank you so much for watching this video until the end. I encourage everyone to give me their feedback, both good and bad. I would just ask that everyone be respectful in the comment section and let me know if you would like me to start making more Warframe videos. I'll catch you guys next time.